Welcome to Pitch Your Firm. I'm your host, Marc Howard, and today we have Reza Hooda as a guest on our show. Welcome to the show, Reza. It's a pleasure to have you. I think we're going to learn quite a bit from you today. This might be a little different from the regular guest format because you have a very interesting background and a transition. So why don't we just take it from the top, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll dig into it.
Sure. No, first of all, thank you very much for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm a practice owner. I started my journey at PwC in the early 2000s. I was there for about 5.5 years. I didn't really fancy waiting 10 years to get to partner. I always had that entrepreneurial instinct, but I never quite found the brain wave of an idea to set up a business in any other field apart from an accounting. 2008 came along. I was thinking of setting up a business of some sort, didn't quite get the idea. Started having conversations with my father-in-law who ran a practice at the time, and he was looking to retire and sell up. So we got talking, and I decided to buy into his firm in 2008. So I left PwC, bought into a very small traditional practice, moved my life down from the middle of England, the UK, where I was in Birmingham, to the south coast, which was a couple of hours away, which is across the other side of the country for us. For you guys, it's just across the street, a couple of hours drive. But that was the start of my journey into running my own practice. And I thought, I've trained at PwC, number one accounting firm in the world. How hard can it be? How wrong I was. Because the first 5 years, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Because they don't teach you when you do your accountancy training how to run a business, how to run an accounting business. Nobody teaches you how to price your services. Nobody teaches you how to win work. Nobody teaches you how to lead and manage a team. So I ended up just winging it, not getting very far. And it wasn't until sort of 2014 that my fortunes changed. But I'll leave it there and I'll let you prod and probe and take the conversation wherever you want to take it.
From 2014 to 2025, obviously that's a lot of ground to cover. So why don't we start with, you said a couple interesting things there, and I just want to unpack. Your background was basically Big Four, and then you're coming to a situation where you're excited. The family was in the accountancy business. You get in there, gets a little harder than you thought it was, but you plowed through it, and now you're in a position where, if I understand correctly, you're not even running it full time. You're basically in a situation where you've pivoted and you have a firm that's oiled enough that it practically runs itself. Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth there. Maybe we start with that. You mentioned that there's like a learning curve. It was really hard, and we can dig into some of those factors, but maybe we can start with what was the what was the change where you noticed that, hey, things were going hard and you got to a certain point where you found that right lever to pull where things started going right? Was that outsourcing? Was that a different pricing model? Was that subscription-based business? What was like that pivotal moment where things started to take off, or did you just hand the reins to someone else that could just focus on it to do it rather than you?
I wish that was the case, Mark. But no, it wasn't that way. It got to the point where, like most firm owners, I inherited what I was doing or my perspective on how to run a firm from the Big Four. So in terms of my pricing model, charging by the hour, doing timesheets, having control over all the client relationships, signing off on everything as the partner of the firm, because that's what they did in the big firms. But how that left me as a sole practitioner in a very small firm meant I was working crazy hours, trading my time for money. I was micromanaging my team. And ultimately, it led to me getting to that point of burnout where if I didn't change something, then I would have had to pack it all in and go back to the day job, groveling back at PwC, which was the worst thing in the world. So actually, it wasn't anything spectacular that was a brainwave moment. What happened was that in 2014, I actually got an invitation to a webinar on practice growth, promising to solve all my problems. And at that point, things couldn't possibly get any worse. So I registered for this webinar and I attended, and I was glued for 90 minutes. And that webinar planted the seed that led to the transformation of my journey. And that was all about pricing. But ultimately, what I learned that day was that I had to invest in myself to become a better business owner, to learn the business skills required to run a business, to ultimately do the best for my team, my clients, and ultimately my family. So I went on a journey from that moment onwards of learning from someone who had trodden the path before me, learning about value pricing. What's this all about? This new way of doing things. It sounded appealing. So I learned about pricing. And pricing was the place where I first started because as accountants, we don't quite realize, but we know that pricing is the most powerful lever in the profit equation. If you can work on your pricing and get higher prices for the same amount of work, it flows straight through to your bottom line. So instantly, you're cash rich. You've got more profit to then invest in other areas of your practice, like bringing in better team members, investing in systems, investing in marketing, and all the rest of it. So that's where I first started in my pricing, moving away from that old model, the hourly billing model, the trading time for money model, moved to value pricing. Initially, just started to experiment to think, oh, does this really work? And so I did a couple of things and I got proof that, oh, this kind of works. So I got more confident. So I tried bigger and better things. And within 24 months of that journey that started in 2014, I went from struggling, frustrated, chasing clients for invoices of between 500 and 1,000 pounds to winning a one-off project of 135,000 pounds that even my bosses at PwC would have been proud of, and taking my firm to £1 million in revenue with just 7 people. But best of all, doing this whilst working less than 10 hours a week in the practice.
That's quite a remarkable journey now. And just to put things in perspective, so 7 employees, 7 FTEs, £1 million in revenue. Now, was that at a certain year point? Give us like the timeline here. Are you at £1 million in revenue now with 7 FTEs, or were you at a certain point with like that growth pattern there?
Yeah, so this was 2016, 2017. We're probably double the team members now. And we are at probably 1.5, just over 1.5 million, but we had to go backwards slightly to come back up, taking me completely out of the practice. So as it stands now, 2025, I work less than 3 hours a week in the practice. It runs completely without me. I have 0 client relationships. Some of the clients don't even know my name. I don't know their names. I get 0 emails. I get 0 phone calls. And I just focus on growth, pretty much marketing. And that's it. I don't take sales calls now because I have systems in place for my team to take them. And then all client relationships are dealt with by my team. All work is dealt with by my team. So that's where we're at today. And obviously, I spend most of my time in my secondary business, which is helping other accountants to do the same.
I'm loving this story already, and there's going to be a lot of envious accountants on the other side, but that's not the point of the conversation. The point is, how can they get to
Yes.
a very admirable place where you are today, right? And a couple things to unpack. One thing is, so with the current firm you run, Capture Accounting, this is what I've noticed, and maybe you can drill into this a little more, because you mentioned a little earlier, one of the levers is pricing, of course. I 100% agree with you. I think there's another powerful lever which I think you captured, and that is the power of the niche, right? And
Mhm.
it seems that your niche, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, why don't you tell me a little bit about your unique niche that you focus on, and maybe tell us a little bit about how you've come to capture that particular niche?
Absolutely. Now, this is one of my favorite topics. And in terms of my journey, so 2016, the firm is running without me. I had launched as I start my journey of learning about those business skills, and primarily the 2 key skills, which I now call the 2 superpowers in business, are marketing and sales. If you can master marketing and scale and sales, you can build and grow and scale any size business or firm that you please. But unfortunately, as accountants, we remain in the technical stuff, just doing accounting work and just hoping and praying that we will grow our business through referrals. It doesn't happen. So marketing scales are crucial. Since 2016, I've been going on a journey, and in 29, so I launched a niche, we call it here, niche, you call it on the other side of the pond, in property, so in real estate, because I kept hearing on my journey of learning about marketing from some of the best minds on the planet that you've got to position yourself in one area, you've got to niche down, you've got to focus, you've got to laser focus your messaging, you've got to specialize. And I'd had a practice which had clients from all industries. We had property, we had construction, we had stamp dealers, we had chiropractors, you name it. We had a complete mixed bag, like most general practitioners would. But I kept hearing from these marketing gurus then you need to focus in on one particular area to laser focus your messaging. So eventually I looked through my client base and I thought, okay, I'll pick property, real estate, because we had quite a few clients in property. I quite liked it. I had started my journey of property investment at the time as well. This is going back into 2016. And then I started to really to specialize and put ourselves out there as the property expert. I wrote a mini book on it. I started to do blogs on it. I did some videos on it, and that started to get traction. I started to receive inbound inquiries because I was now suddenly putting out value in the world to a very specific audience and addressing their exact problems, challenges, and questions that they had, which led them to see me as the expert in that particular sector. Now, underlyingly, I probably had as much knowledge, if not the same knowledge as another general practitioner. But because I was marketing myself differently, I was differentiating myself from that sea of sameness of everybody else, I started to receive inbound custom. And not only that, but I started to receive a much better quality clients and I was able to charge them more. Because who gets paid more? The specialist or the generalist? The GP or the brain surgeon? The latter, right? So when you're a specialist, you can command more at the top end. You can charge a premium fee and people are happy to pay it because they are used to paying higher prices to a specialist. On the flip side, internally, you can handle more clients per team member because they're doing the same thing over and over again. They're getting the same questions, which are answers at the tip of the tongue. For tax, the bookkeeping's the same, accounts are set up in the same way, tax returns are all uniform. So you start to get internal efficiencies. And what happens when you can charge more at the top end because you're positioned well and it's costing you less to deliver the work? So the rate at which you have to take on additional cost to grow is reduced. What that gap becomes your nice, lovely, healthy profit. So that helped us to get to 50% net profit margins. Fast forward to 2019, 2020, I had extracted myself from my firm. I started teaching accountants on pretty much doing the same. And I came up with, when I was started coaching accountants, I thought, how can I teach this kind of stuff? What have I done over the years? All the individual steps that I have taken, how can I put that into a framework to help others get similar results? And I came up with a 4-pillar framework, which was the 4 pillars that I worked on over that course of the last sort of 10 years in order to get my practice to run and grow without me. And they were pricing, positioning, process, and people. And if you can build those foundations, then you can grow and scale any size firm that you please. But ultimately, it starts with positioning because that helps you to get the higher prices. Then when you're priced correctly, value priced, then you can then start to build the team, the systems in order to be able to build that well-oiled machine that can grow and scale as much or as little as you please.
Now, in all the M&A activity that's been going on over the last few years, this side of the pond, that side of the pond, lots of activity. You chose not to sell your firm. You chose to basically stick with it, let it run by itself. What was like the motivation for that? Did you have a particular reason just to keep it running versus selling and just focusing more 100% on other endeavors?
Yeah, good question. So we haven't talked about capture accounting yet. So capture accounting, because that kind of helps to answer this question as well. So my original firm name was not capture accounting. Capture accounting was only born in 2021 as a result of a marketing test. The original firm name was Walji & Co., which is the name of my father-in-law when he was running the practice, a very traditional accounting firm. But in 2021, as I've started my journey of helping accountants, the number one challenge I kept hearing, and I run a Facebook group where there's over 1,000 firmers in there, and I ask a question when they join, what is your number one challenge? And by and large, the number one challenge I kept hearing was, how do I win new clients? How do I get new clients? Struggling to get clients. So I'd already been teaching that you've got to niche down, specialize, focus. But in 2021, I thought, okay, rather than just teach you again, I will do it with you. I will launch a brand new firm with a new name, a new logo, a new audience, and everything I do, I will share with you in real time. And the promise of the course I started at the time was 0 to 100K in 12 months. So if we didn't get there ourselves, it would have been serious egg on my face. Thankfully, we got there in 9. So Capture Accounting was a brand born in 2021. Now, that is the fastest growing brand in our firm, and that's where all our efforts are dedicated in terms of our positioning in the marketplace. It's a brand that focuses on helping content creators and influencers. So we've been riding the wave of content creation, etc., over the last few years. But having seen that grow and having seen the impact of also having something quite aspirational, it's helped me to attract the best talent as well because people want to work in a growing, ambitious, exciting place. So that's helped me to attract the good talent to my firm. And we've got a mission now that we want to be the number one brand for accounting firms for content creators in the country. So rather than selling out, I thought this is a good mission to have to be the number one brand. We're not far off, but that's what we would like to do, and I'd love to do it parallel with also doing what I do with coaching other accountants. But in addition to that, it helps me to also still have my eye in, and my firm acts as my playground, which is the really value add when I'm helping accountants to say, I run a firm, and I can try stuff, and the stuff that works, I show my accountants and say, look, you should do the same. And the stuff that doesn't work, I say, look, I tried this. Don't bother doing it because I wasted time and money on that thing. So don't bother doing that. So it helps in terms of being my playground to try and test stuff still.
So the revenue at 1.5 pounds, is that the former firm or is that this or is that Capture Accounting
Yes, that's combined. That's together now. Yeah.
combined? Got it.
Combined. So
Okay.
we had some legacy clients because the old firm ran, I think it was established 40 years ago, 45 years ago. So naturally, some of those clients will have left, but now capture accounting is now the fastest growing element of the practice now.
Got it. And so that firm, the niche was focused more on real estate. This one is more of influencers, content creators, quite a big difference. And I can understand that transition because we have an expression here, you drink your own Kool-Aid, right? You have become more of an influencer and you understand what it takes to be an influencer. However, you understand the other side of the equation, like the accounting side, what it takes to run a firm. Is there a reason that you decided not to just stick with that niche that you already knew pretty well, the real estate, and just go to more focus on influencers? You mentioned that you wanted to start off pretty much from a clean slate, grow a firm. That's already a hard task. But then also choosing a totally different niche on top of that, that's more of a Herculean struggle, right? So why not just stick with the real estate niche? Why did you just pivot to the influencer?
Yeah, I love a challenge. I guess that was the main reason. But actually, there was the other reason behind the property niche was that there was some quite complex tax work involved working with the property clients, a lot of transact advisory stuff going on. And because I am a chartered tax advisor here, the only chartered tax advisor in my firm, I was still quite involved in the advisory projects. So I wanted to come away from it completely. I didn't want there to be any reliance on me in terms of the delivery of work to clients. And that's why I thought if I keep plugging the property niche, I am still going to have to be involved in some way because there was a limit to my current team's capability in that regard. So that's why I thought, how can we pivot into something else? And as I am teaching accountants, I thought this would be a good thing to do. At the time, we had one content creator in our practice and in our firm as a client, and I'd started doing some content creation. So even when I'm talking to accountants in terms of they're struggling with choosing their niche, you've got to choose a niche which, it's something you're passionate about, like you know something about it, you like to work with people like that. I was doing content creation, so I could talk at some level and relate to the clients that we were seeing. But also it's got to be a valuable niche in terms of it's got to be profitable for you. So a sector that is going to make money, and therefore if they make the money, you're making money too. So these are some of the factors involved when picking a niche to work with, and content creators seem to work quite nicely for me. And starting that marketing test, I thought, okay, this seems like a good thing to do, and it's a great challenge. And if I can pull it off, then a lot of the objections that I had from my accountant community, like, oh, you can do it because you've got an established firm and you've got existing people and you've got this track record. So I said, oh, fine, look, I'll start from scratch. I'll do it with you to give belief, because I truly believe that we're in the best time to grow an accounting firm in decades, because the pandemic has helped. The pandemic has actually, there's been a silver lining in the pandemic in that what it did was it accelerated our behavior. There was a societal shift that took place where people got comfortable having Zoom conversations. People got comfortable sending information to their accountant electronically because they had to. Offices were closed. You couldn't go and meet your accountant. So what happened was there was this seismic shift that took place, which most people overlooked, but where most accountants would have a very physical relationship with their accountant. The accountant would have clients within a 20, 30, 40-mile radius of their office. The pandemic put pay to that. Now there's an opportunity that if you get your positioning right and your messaging right, you can grow a firm which attracts clients from anywhere in the country. And particularly in the UK, the country is your oyster. And similarly in the US, it's absolutely possible. So with capture accounting, none of the clients we actually visited our office, even though we have a physical office. They're all remote, and it's enabled us to really grow and expand because we're now not limited with our locality and our situation of our office anymore.
One of the biggest things I hear from accountants is just being able to take yourself out of the business, being able to treat it not just as a business, but almost as an investment, right? And you seem to have walked that path. You've basically gotten to the point where it practically runs itself. Now, in doing that, you likely had to put together some kind of SOPs or systems or things in place to be able to do that transition, a particular management structure. Can you talk a little bit about, without giving away too much of the secret sauce, what systems or practice structures, employees that did you actually have to put in place to get this to run basically completely without you?
Absolutely. And I don't mind sharing any secrets. I happily share all my secrets. So it's not a problem because I want to help as many firm owners as possible. So I made an earlier mistake before I went on a journey of how to do things right, is that I used to, when I needed people, I used to hire people at a very low level, a junior level, apprentices, which because they were cheap and I could get them in. But that was actually, it was counterproductive because what happened was I was already working crazy hours. And then I bring somebody in at a junior level. What happens? Instead of them being able to take work off me, I'm spending more time, which I didn't have, in actually training and coaching and helping them and reviewing their work. So that was one big mistake I made. So when I started to then get more profits in my practice, once I got my pricing on point, I then invested in better quality people, higher qualified people, because I could bring somebody in and they could take away the client relationship from me. They could take away the technical work from me. So I was actually buying back my time by bringing in someone at a higher level. So now what I have is we have quite a top heavy structures. We've got 5 or 6 client managers, and then we've got bookkeepers and juniors underneath them. But what that means is that I call them my generals, my senior leadership team. My generals basically run the show. They are in charge of client relationships. They're in charge of practice management, workflow, passing work down, ultimate responsibility to clients. And I have what I call a ladder of accountability, which is that the team know that you are accountable first and foremost to clients. Secondly, you're accountable to your colleagues. And thirdly, you're accountable to me. But I know that if clients are looked after, colleagues are happy with each other, then ultimately I'll be happy too. So in terms of my other 4 pillars, it's got the process and the people. So people is key, getting in people who could take away that relationship from you. But also I moved to a model in 2018 where only results matter. So you may have heard of the concept of a results-only work environment espoused by Jody Thompson and Callie Resler in their book Work Sucks and How to Fix It. So I read that book, and that was an eye-opener for me, where the theory was that your people should be able to work when, where, and how they want, as long as the work gets done. Adopting that in our practice, this was pre-pandemic, so it was quite alien. We got rid of the timesheets, and we said only results matter now. So that enabled us to motivate our team to attract better quality talent and have the focus more on results as opposed to presenteeism and clocking a timesheet. Because anyone can make up what they put on a timesheet, but no one can actually make up work or results. So you're better off tracking the results and the work rather than looking at whether someone has filled in a timesheet. So good people, building that culture which attracts the best talent, retains your high performers, and maximizes everyone's potential but then also having those key systems in place as well. So the key systems being having an efficient factory system. So essentially we run a digital factory. Stuff comes in from clients, we do something to it, it then goes out to IRS or HMRC in the UK. So having something which manages that workflow. But one key system, which a lot of firm owners don't appreciate, which I've written about in my book, is the brains of the practice, how we do things here. And the way that plays out in practical terms is your process notes, your how-to guides, actually capturing and sharing the intellectual capital or the knowledge in your team's heads, past, present, and future. And how powerful is that? If you're able to capture all that knowledge of how each team member does something in the most efficient way, taking into account their years of expertise, and they put that into our process notes and guidance so that new people coming in always have the most efficient way of doing things. And that's what leads to efficiency and profitability, not clocking hours on a timesheet and seeing whether something has taken you an hour or an hour and a half.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I,
the secret sauce. Yeah.
yeah, and that's there's always going to be debates on like is billable hour the best, subscription, tiered pricing, menu pricing, cost plus. There's lots of methods to do that. Now, in your firm, are you, it sounds that you're not really doing the hourly billing, but are you actually tracking hours internally just for statistics or not?
And we got rid of the timesheets back in 2018, so we haven't tracked any time since then.
Got it. So in terms of measuring employee efficiency, that is based off of output from the employees, or how are you actually, you mentioned like the book that inspired you. How are you actually measuring the success per employee? Are you using some sort of like production pay system, or how are you actually tracking that to know that, hey, your generals are crushing it versus these guys that might need a little help in certain things? Like how are you, what is that feedback system? How do you actually know? How are you tracking that kind of thing?
Mm. Yeah, so each team member has KPIs that they track. And ultimately, it's about output per team member. So it's about we're paying you X amount, and you've got to deliver value over and above in multiples over and above what you are being paid. So whatever that multiple is, it varies from depending on your level of seniority, but ultimately that is one of the KPIs of our team members. So it's measured by output, the amount of fees that they're able to manage, the amount of client portfolio that they are sustaining and doing everything from A to Z for that client, that the client is happy, that everything is being done in the right way, deadlines being met, we are delivering great service. So that's how we measure the productivity of our team. And ultimately, that's evident from our bottom line.
Sure. And is it totally in-house there, or are you offshoring a certain percentage of work or certain processes in your firm?
Yeah, we do have some offshore individuals in the Philippines. We've got about two or three over there. So they help to support our team over here. We've got some offshore assistants, but otherwise predominantly here in the UK.
Got it. And what do you really feel is like your moat, or you can call it competitive advantage? It's one thing to have a niche, but it'd be great to be the only firm for influencers, right? There's a few out there. How do you stand out? What kind of makes you guys different versus others? Is there any kind of secret sauce from a competitive advantage standpoint? I'm sure you're not doing junior things like throwing out discounts or anything like that. You're probably providing some great services, but what really makes you stand out when they compare you to, the six other people down the road? What kind of really makes you guys stand out?
Mm, yeah, it is exactly that. It's that getting laser focused on who you serve, because that avoids you being in that situation where people can't differentiate you from the six other firms down the road. And we have plenty of firms, we have more than six on the same road as us, but they're all general practitioners. We are the only ones who have put our stall out there to say we are now only dealing with content creators and influencers. So immediately, just by going laser focus into one particular area, you are now differentiated from the sea of sameness as everybody else. You're no longer in that mushy middle as everybody else. So really, it's about going inch wide, mile deep into one particular area, because not only does that make it easy for clients to find you and to choose you over a generalist, but you become more and more valuable as time goes on, because really get to know each ins and outs of that particular client sector, that it is impossible for a generalist firm to keep up with, where they're trying to manage 57 different industries. So they're getting questions about dentists and doctors and construction and real estate and VAT on digital supplies and content creators. It's impossible to keep up with everything. So really, the secret sauce or strategy is get clear on the who, specialize. Your strategy essentially is about focusing. Focus, and the acronym for focus, focus on one course until successful.
Got it. I'm a huge fan of efficiency. I love tracking metrics. One of my favorite metrics or KPIs is revenue per FTE or revenue per employee. And there's a couple drivers of that. Obviously, one you mentioned, like the pricing driver, right? The other is how can I actually get a little more per employee, right? A little more efficiency per employee. Like Peter Drucker says, you can't manage what you can't measure. What do you feel is, we've talked about your external competitive advantages, but internally, what's sort of driving the efficiency? And this might be a good bridge for another hot topic today, which is automation and AI. Are you doing anything with automation, any particular practice management systems? What are you doing to drive efficiency and revenue per employee at your firm?
Mm. Yeah, so it goes back to what I said earlier in terms of one of our core values is to seek and share knowledge. And we're very big on that. And I take my role, so I have coined the term that I am the CRO of the firm, the Chief Reminding Officer. So my job is simply to come in our weekly team meetings and to remind them of our core values. And the stuff that I like to see, that I praise, is me seeing that we are seeking knowledge and sharing knowledge. And a lot of that these days is to do with how are we using tools and AI to work smarter is another one of our core values. So we have these core values that underpin what we do, how we do it, and our culture. And so everybody knows when they come into this firm that it is the work smarter, seek and share knowledge are part of our core values. That's what I want to be seeing. We have a particular Slack channel which is called Working Smarter. Regularly, we like to see Loom videos being made of if you've done a process and you've had to go and research that particular process, then do a Loom video on it and put it into that Slack channel. So again, going deep into the weeds here, how it works in practicality is that we use Notion to house all our process notes. So we've got a big database in Notion, which is called Knowledge Hub. And anytime you come up with something, a useful contact or a process or a system, you record a Loom video, you put it in there. So it's full of our how-tos. So the go-to for someone when they don't know how to do something is go to the Knowledge Hub first. Type in what you're looking to do, whether it's how to do a sales tax registration, how to finding a contact in the US, for example. Any particular how-to will be in our Knowledge Hub, and that is encouraged in terms of that being a core part of what we do to drive that internal efficiency. That the way we get better is through capturing and sharing that intellectual capital, because that comes from a very famous saying by the head of HP, who said if HP knew HP knows, they would be 3 times more profitable.
Yeah, it reminds me. I saw an article the other day. I think it was on McKinsey or some other not accounting firm, but a consulting firm, where it's just a lot of these firms preach but don't practice. It's like they get $1,000 an hour to say this is how you do it, but they don't actually internalize the processes themselves. So yeah, it's so important to actually practice what you preach. Are there any other, so you are the sort of the major general. You're coming in on a weekly basis, you're having meetings, you're going through the Notion file, making sure everything is running properly. Are there any KPIs? Tell me about maybe one or two of your favorite KPIs that you like to track at your firm, or a KPI that you feel is one, if there's, for the folks that are listening, is if there's any KPIs in particular that you feel that are most important for growing firms, what would that be?
Yeah, so I like to choose KPIs depending upon the season that we're in. So if there's a particular area that I feel we need development in this area, and this particular area we need to push, then we'll create a KPI for that season or for that quarter. So things like my favorite KPIs are linked to output. So rather than having just some sort of internal percentage which has no impact on clients, I want to see the stuff that we are doing internally. What impact is that having externally to our key stakeholders, i.e. clients? And how do we measure that? So one of them is number of Google reviews. The more Google reviews we are getting, that signals to me that we are doing a great job. And that's going to help us to get more inbound traffic on our website. It's going to help us to get more clients, to get more referrals, and the rest of it. So number of Google reviews is something that we track. Number of process notes added to the knowledge hub. So I want to encourage this is to again emphasize my importance of this particular action and core value. That becomes a KPI that I want to see that number going up. This is our target. So number of process notes, Loom videos added to the knowledge hub, that becomes a KPI, and that's something we track. Like you say, what gets measured gets managed. So if you're measuring that thing, people are going to be more inclined to be looking at that thing and be doing the thing, which makes it go up. And I know if that goes up, then internally we are going to generate efficiency as a result. So there are just a couple of my favorites, as it were, but always linked to external output.
And let's talk a little bit more about growth. Obviously, one of your big pushes is marketing and sales. I agree 100%. There's so many smart accountants, CPAs out there, chartered accountants, but they fail on that growth side, right? Without us having to immediately join your program tomorrow, can you give away any kind of secrets or tips in terms of what you're seeing these days that work really well in terms of growth, maybe particularly for a remote accounting firm? You mentioned one, which I think is 100% on point, Google reviews, being able to get a Google review just to capture that, which I think is actually a growth strategy in itself. Are there any other particular channels or strategies that you use well, and can you give us any examples?
Yeah, sure. So I get asked this a lot, and everyone wants to know what should we do for marketing? What's working? What channel should we use? Should we do LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or paid ads or what should we do? The thing is, these are all marketing tactics, and they all work, and then they all don't work. And the thing that makes them work is one thing, and that is strategy. Because tactics without strategy is just noise. So you need the strategy on point. And strategy is simply about prioritization, about focus, about getting clear on your who. So choosing that niche is your who, whether that's a niche by industry or a niche by activity or a niche by service. Whatever it is, different type ways of choosing a niche doesn't have to be by a particular industry. But once you get clear on that who, the what, where, and how to find your ideal client becomes so much easier. So before I got clear on my who, I did all of those things. I did paid ads, I did telemarketing, I did organic social, I did SEO, and I got hit and miss results. I changed when I got clear on my who, I'm doing all those things, cold emails, DMs, mail shots, paid ads, referral strategy. It's all working now because I'm clear on my who. I know exactly who I'm targeting. So I know what messaging to use and I know exactly where to hang out. Because when you get clear on the who, the what, where, and how to find them becomes so much easier. So you choose one particular category, then you know, oh, yeah, this is where they're hanging out. So I should go and hang out where they hang out. These are the questions they're asking. I need to create content around the questions that they're asking. So your marketing becomes a lot easier when you get clear on that who. When you do, you're left flummoxed in terms of yeah, it's when there's too much to do, you end up doing nothing because you don't know what to say because you're not speaking to one person. You're trying to speak to everyone. And when you're trying to appeal to everyone, you actually appeal to no one.
And before we sign off here, just kind of future projecting a little bit, where do you see your firm in the next 3 years or so? Are you going to stick with this particular niche? Do you have any particular growth goals in particular? Are there any particular constraints that you're still trying to weed out today and get over? Maybe if you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yep, we're on a good trajectory. So I envisage that the firm will double in the next 3 years, the way our rate of growth is going. The constraint now is people finding good people. So usually the number one challenge I hear from accounting firm is how do we get new clients? The second challenge is how do we find good people? So that's going to be that is the secondary constraint for us. We've got a system that generates inquiries and clients on autopilot. Now we just need to be able to attract enough talent to be able to manage that capacity to accommodate our growth in the next few years.
We've definitely unpacked a lot today. Thanks so much for being on the show. Before we leave, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, for folks that maybe want a little help or want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I share posts daily to help firm owners. I've got a free podcast called The Profitable Accountant, so feel free to check that out. And I've got a book which I give away free copies. I can send you the link, and all you need is pay shipping and handling, and we'll get a copy shipped over to you wherever you are in the world, if that would be of use to your listeners.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get a link into the show notes there. Reza, thanks so much for hopping on the show today. It's been a pleasure. I think we've learned a lot, and thanks for sharing everything you did today.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.